You organize and produce and invite special people to really special events. Tell us a little bit about Zoé.
A collective power of vision-oriented, value-aligned individuals to be able to build a more sustainable and just and beautiful world. And we're doing it through experiences, retreats, creating a global ecosystem of these kinds of people.
In these events, bringing these people together, what would you hope would be the outcome?
I would say that one of the reasons for Zoé is based on the realizations that there are so many truly amazing individuals who are really aligned with deep values of what it means to be humans. They're spread like birds, and there is a huge potential just by coming together, because a flock of birds is a totally different thing than just 100 birds each flying on its own. I would say that's one very core thing, realizing that there are so many amazing people which can come together and create. It's purpose alignment, it's appreciation, it's creation. That's basically what happens in all of our experiences that we create. In our current society, sometimes we think that the way for us to experience a more intense subjective experience would be by intensifying the stimulants that we consume, louder music, food additives, and so on. And then what happens is that our senses get more dull, and so we need to intensify more and more and more, and we're basically never content. You can't all of us have yachts and private jets and 7-star hotels and so on and on. But when it comes to our capacity to appreciate beauty, no scarcity, right? You can enjoy music and I can, and we can do it together.
Welcome to the YokoVillage Podcast, episode number 4. Today we have a special guest, Daniel Leviathan. Daniel, thank you for joining us. Daniel is the founder of Zoé. Zoé means life. Daniel, thank you for being here. I'm excited to have you. Tell us a little bit about Zoé and yourself, if you may.
Sure. So first, it's a pleasure to be with you, Liran, and here in YokoVillage. I'm really appreciated this opportunity and in general what we're creating. And a few things about Zoé. So Zoé, as you said, it means life in ancient Greek. We co-founded it, myself and Michael Matthias, my co-founder, my partner, about 1.5 years ago, a bit more. The reason, the idea of what we're creating is how can we create a collective power of vision-oriented, value-aligned individuals to be able to together build a more sustainable and just and beautiful world. And we're doing it through experiences, retreats, creating an ecosystem, a global ecosystem of these kinds of people. So that just in a few words.
And so you do it through events and gatherings, right?
Yeah, different kinds, both online and offline.
What inspired you to start Zoé?
I guess it's things that for years I've been exploring, questions. I had a moment in my life when I was about 20 and something, that on the one hand, everything looked very glamorous and great on the outside. I've achieved things that I couldn't imagine I would, especially not at that age. And yet, I also felt empty inside of myself. Something was missing. And at that time, there were also things, different questions that I was exploring. I was in the Israeli intelligence and I was researching macroeconomics. And one of the things that I was researching was different trends, economical trends. And I came to realize that some countries, their finances, their GDP can increase significantly over the years. And yet also the rates of suicide, of depression, of loneliness go up. And that didn't make sense to me, especially not to my heart. Or how is it that such a huge amounts of money are being allocated towards war and arms rather than education or healthcare? Or when I would go to the ocean, there would be so much junk around. Why? And those things and more basically encouraged me to journey into those questions. I realized that I may not find the answers in books or videos, but they should be found within myself. So I embarked on a journey for about a year and a half, different countries. I would say that during that journey, the first seeds for Zoé were planted. It was a few years before Zoé was actually founded, but they were already have been planted by then.
So you organize and produce and invite special people to really special events. This is the context of how. So we met through another person who was sitting here in the last podcast that I've done, Aaron. He is into impact. He has an impact fund, wants to make the world a better place. And I feel like, in a sense, so do you, and so does Yoko. Yet it's very easy to perceive it as anything else for purposes of money or just business. There's so much profundity that I found when in conversations with you, and I guess your inner motives are more interesting to me. And I also obviously would like you to share a little bit about what exactly happens in these events. How do you invite people? How do you choose those people? And what do people get out of these events that you curate with Zoé?
Yeah, sure. So one thing actually that's coming from me about it, what you shared, is that you mentioned myself and you and Eran and other people. And I would say that one of the reasons for Zoe is based on the realizations that there are so many truly amazing individuals who are really aligned with deep values of what it means to be humans. And they're spread all around the world like birds. They're spread like birds. And there is a huge potential just by coming together. Because a flock of birds is a totally different thing than just 100 birds each flying on its own. So I would say that's one very core thing, realizing that there are so many amazing people which can come together and create. And that brings me to the question of what is happening on those events. And I would say that if we start actually with the pillars of Zoe, which are being expressed in the events, there are 4 pillars that took us a few years to refine them and actually ask if we want to create a culture that's truly emphasizing sustainability and justice and freedom and beauty, what would be the pillars that it would stand on? And the first one is deep connection and trust. It's basically how can we support and encourage people to deepen their connection with themselves and each other and nature. The way we are doing it is based on deepening presence, listening, and authentic expression. And realizing that the more that we're deeply connected, the more trust is created. And trust is a very important thing when it comes to bringing people together. The next one is alignment, purpose alignment. Realizing that if I ask you, and I'm actually curious, I would love to ask you, how would the most beautiful world that your heart can imagine, how does it look? What happens there? And I actually asked you that question yesterday, I think. And then you would share some things with me, and I will have my own answer, and Eran will have his, and others. And what I came to realize, even just by asking this question, is that we're not so different. Those worlds that we imagine are not so different. And the more that we can realize it and also realize what are the values that are important to us and align those values and those visions, we have a shared story. So this is purpose alignment. And basically, we realize the groups of people that have no direction and no trust can do almost anything. And groups of people that have both a shared story, a direction for where they want to go, and also trust among each other. There can be two things basically that they can do, and that takes us to the second and to the third and fourth pillar. So the third one is appreciation of beauty. Realizing that human beings throughout the years have basically been doing two main things. One was experiencing what's already here. It could be through ceremonies, through dancing, through watching a movie, and the other is creation. So the first is appreciation, which is experiencing the beauty of life that's already here in many different ways. And the fourth pillar is creation, basically bringing our unique gifts that we each hold as individual in synergy with the others, so together we can create a greater and a different whole. So just repeating it, it's connection and trust, it's purpose alignment, it's appreciation, it's creation. That's basically what happens in all of our experiences that we create. We start with connection and alignment, and then we go to appreciation and creation.
So, in these events, bringing these people together, what would you hope would be the outcome of these events, of these gatherings that you're hosting?
So there are a few. One, I would call it inspiration. It's kind of, in our day-to-day lives, wherever we are, sometimes we can be really caught in the drudgery of the everyday and kind of lose the inspiration for how this world can actually be like. So what is inspiration? Is to inspire ourselves and each other. The second one is relationships. I think one of the greatest, maybe the greatest thing I've received so far from Zoe is relationships. Like with you and with others. So I would say that this is a very significant one. Deep relationships with people that I truly share values with. And another one is collaboration, co-creation, cooperation between people. So whenever I heard about a new thing that emerged from a few people who met at Zoe, my heart was filled with so much gratitude. So I would say that is the third one.
Would you say there is a special type of people that are attracted to Zoe, and how do you define them, if you can?
So I think there are a few characteristics. One is people who have already done some progress in where they are in their specific domain of life. It could be in business, it could be in academia, it could be in entertainment, and they are in a position where they can make an impact in their domain, on other domains. So I would say that's one. The second is that they realize that there is a game that we play in society. When I was a few years ago, I was researching something called SCS. It's a system of China, social credit system. And basically, what's happening there is that each person has a score, and depending on what they do in life, their score can get higher or lower, and that has an impact on transportation and receiving financing and different things. I remember that back then I was really almost terrified by this idea that, wow, why? Why each person needs to have a score and then comparing each other. And if I happen to date somebody who has a lower score, my score would be lower and so on. And I guess a year after or so, I actually came to a realization that it's everywhere, not just in China. In our Western world, it's a bit more subtle. But there are different things that we do, our titles, where we live, how much money we make, how much publications we have if we're in the academia, and many other aspects, how many followers and likes and so on. And as individuals, either in a conscious way or not from a conscious way, we are trying to get this score higher. And I would say that what's kind of ridiculous even about it is that at the end, we as human beings, we experience life in subjectively, right? We all have a subjective experience, but we measure ourselves and each other through objective metrics, these scores. So there is a misalignment. If we would measure about how happy I am, how much I'm in love, how much I'm connected to nature, to other people, great. But these obviously are not the measurements. So I would say that, coming back to your question about the people, so the first is people who already have a way to make an impact. But the second is that they are realizing the current game that's being played. They can play it, and yet they're also curious about what else can be created. Not just within this game, but how can we even change the game itself, the rules themselves. So are open-minded to deep thinking about the paradigms that we have, and are really connected to their hearts and are wishing to focus their attention and energy towards things that have real value.
That's beautiful. And so people who are open-minded, who would like to have some sort of an impact, like kind of do more aside from just taking care of themselves or their family, but maybe do more towards the world, or would like to see different paradigms. This reminds me of this thing that we spoke about, game A, game B. Maybe you can share a little bit about that conversation that we had. How do you feel about people that are in game A and people that are in game B, and what's your role in between those two types?
Sure. So game B, it's a concept that a few years ago I was introduced to, which was introduced by a few other thinkers that I really appreciate. And I would say maybe starting with explaining a bit about how I perceive game A and the challenges that it brings, and then what opportunities we have. So basically, we as humans, we've created some kinds of a system of a game. If we take capitalism, for example, some of the core foundations of it is saying human beings want to survive. And to do it, they need to have resources, food, shelter, so on. There is scarcity on these. So whoever wins will get the resources. If we want to win, we need to have more power over each other or over nature. If we have more power over nature, we can extract more resources from nature. If we have on each other, we can get the resources from others. To have power, we need we create innovation, more technologies. So by facilitating a system that is based on scarcity and encourages therefore competition, there will be more innovation, and by having more innovation, there will be more growth, and then more for everybody. And this had worked in many ways. And thanks to it, we can have this podcast and have our iPhones and so on. So this system is amazing. And I'm in deep gratitude for this system. And yet, like many systems, sometimes they should be updated. And what I realized was that there are a few phenomena that are related to the foundations of our current system, which their interplay creates a very unique and challenging scenario. So those phenomena, one is the idea of Windows dynamics. So let's say that we both are in the forest and we chop trees. And I realized that if we continue, we may have no forest. But then I say, yeah, but if I stop, you continue, then there is going to be no forest anyway. Then better I continue. And you say the same thing. So we continue. This is Windows dynamics. It happens not just in forests, obviously, but in oceans and fishery and many other aspects of life. Now, this connects to another phenomenon, which is the asymmetry of power, which also significantly relates to the exponentiality of technology. So just to give an example, suppose that I have an idea to create a machine, an AI-based machine that can chop 1,000 trees a day. And I go to some venture capital and I tell them about this idea. And maybe they say, wow, yeah, this could be great, but if everybody will have that, there is going to be no forests. But then they say, yeah, but if we don't invest, then some other VC would, then better we do. And maybe at some point I want to stop, but then I would say, yeah, but the board will fire me and it will get another CEO, then better I continue. Maybe even as a consumer, I don't want to buy it, but then I say, yeah, but you will buy it, then better I do. So it basically accelerates the implications of the Windows dynamics. And these two relate to a third phenomenon, which is the misalignment between what's being incentivized and real value. So let's take this example. Today in our world, GDP, profit for the shareholders, power, arms, these things are being incentivized. The thing is that if we take money, for example, it's not the real value, but it's basically resembles value. An example could be if we take a tree. A tree has inherent value, right? It has photosynthesis, relationships with birds and insects and so on, but it's not liquid financially. It is very unique though. No trees look the same. If you want to increase its liquidity, you can make timber out of it. If you want to increase it even more, you can create paper bills. Paper bills have no real value, right? It's just something resembling something. And today, most of the money is actually code in the computer. It has zero inherent value and maximum liquidity. So money could be an amazing thing as long as it's tied to real value. In the past, it was tied to gold. Maybe is gold has the most real value? I'm not sure, but it's something real. Today, it's tied to nothing, and it's being printed more and more. And how it relates to the other different phenomena are that we basically create more and more things that may not be of real value in a Windows dynamics at an exponential rate. So it's kind of like if we imagine a ship that's in the ocean and it sails at an exponential rate, not necessarily for a direction that we as humans really want to go to, but instead of pressing on the brake and say, hey guys, let's just take a moment, take a breath, realign, readjust, we actually push full on the gas, because if we stop, Chinese will continue, the other company will continue, whoever. So this is how I see the challenges in our current systems. And it's not that there is some villain or somebody that we can blame. It's the systems that have worked truly well and have created a significant abundance to human beings, and yet they could be updated and be more relevant to where we are now.
Well, this is game A. How would you describe Game B? And I guess you want to attract people that play in Game B their lives. Um, how would you describe Game B?
So I think the best way for me to describe it is actually go down to a more fundamental game that is even more fundamental than either game B or game A, which is the game of life. Game of B or game A we created, but game of life we received, right? And in this very fundamental game, there is gravity, right? We need to eat, we need to breathe. It's things that we just received. And in this game, we all have a subjective experience. We mentioned it earlier. We experience it through our senses. We taste, we smell, we see, and so on. And what was truly remarkable for me to realize was that if we were to live in a world that's fully empty with nothing, then it could have been quite boring. But we not just have those senses, we live in a truly amazing and fantastically, remarkably beautiful world. There is so many flavors and scents and landscapes and music and on and on and on. It's infinite. And we all, as human beings, have the capacities to experience this beauty. And even if, the I don't know, the apple would have been 10% of its amazing flavor, we would survive, right? But it's 100. And not just 100, but we have the capacity to deepen our appreciation of it. In our current society, sometimes we think that the way for us to experience a more intense subjective experience would be by intensifying the stimulants that we consume, louder music, food additives, and so on. And then what happens is that our senses get more dull, and so we need to intensify more and more and more, and we're basically never content. While realizing that a person can have a cup of wine and say, wow, what an amazing wine, and another would say, oh, just wine. So just the stimulant, but our capacity to appreciate it. And that's important when explaining game B, because on resources, on stimulants, there is scarcity. There is no, you can't, all of us have yachts and private jets and 7 stars hotels and so on and on. But when it comes to our capacity to appreciate beauty, no scarcity, right? You can enjoy music and I can, and we can do it together. So the more we focus on that, we actually realize how much abundance we have. And then it brings us to one thing is realizing that there can be a way to make a system where all of its stakeholders, the rich, the poor, the nature, our nature, all of them actually benefit from it. So a system that is sustainable, it can last for years, for many, many years. It's equitable, it's just. So it doesn't mean that everybody needs to be billionaires, but it does mean that everybody can potentially have the basic conditions to not play the game of survival, but to be able to play the game of life, the game of beauty, to experience this beauty, to create more of it, whoever chooses their own way. So I would say for me, game B is a systems and culture that cultivate dynamics that are win-win. All of the actors in this game win by playing. It's sustainable. It's infinite. It's not a game that has an end, but it can infinitely continue, and it's remarkably beautiful, as life actually is.
We met because we would like to produce events together. I see a lot of the Yoko community have so much resemblance to the Zoé community, and essentially we want. It's like I could be sitting and watching Netflix right now and be like, okay, I have everything that I need, and I just want to take care of myself or my family or my close friends. But this is people that usually want to do a little bit more than just take care of themselves. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And these are people who take do the extra work, the extra mile to help others or create value, right? We spoke about what is value compared to money and trees. And by the way, as a developer, don't connect me to cutting trees because a lot of people are doing that already. And I can see the beauty and value that each and every tree has. Yet, as a developer, I also require to build roads and put infrastructure. So a few trees must go because of that. That's very unfortunate. But I can also at the same time be committed to plant another 100 trees for every tree that I would not have other way but have to remove. And so there is a negative side to every positive side. And how do we attract this type of people? How do we get them to join Yoko? Because I would like to have people in my community so share that beauty of life and appreciate and be as healthy, present as much as possible. Maybe attract those who want to build healthy, sustainable lifestyle, or want to give back to the locality, to nature. But yet everybody is always so caught up with their lives and some of their own survival. And what I think is beautiful is that intention to try to bring these people together. Now, you mentioned that some of these, you're looking for people who already have some impact because they can do more, like somebody who has a lot of money. I could say as a CEO of a unicorn company, somebody who can really make a lot of impact. And those people usually don't make a lot of impact. How do we get them to move from a game A to game B? Or how do we get them to come and open themselves at a Zoé event? Or what do you think about all that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So first, just to say that I believe many of those people actually do create a lot of impact. Many of them actually great impact and amazing impact, and then they create technology and they create tools and many amazing things. And obviously depends on what we call impact. And for sure, there is always a way to create a more aligned and value-based impact. And I also want to say, just before I answer your question about how we attract those people, I want to share something that came from me while you were sharing about the trees, which is something that I actually appreciate about you and about Yoko. And I think that connecting to a question of what is real value, it's a question that I was contemplating for many years. What can I be sure that is real value? And it brought me to thinking, what are the basic conditions for humans to flourish? Because if we have more of those conditions, then we can have more humans who flourish. And if this is what's being incentivized, then we basically incentivize to have more and more of those conditions, and therefore more and more people who can flourish. And I believe there are a few very simple ones that are universally right? Because there are obviously specific things that may support somebody specific and somebody else maybe not so much. But I guess things that are universally right, at least in my opinion, one is land that is fertile and it's beautiful with trees and plants, healthy food, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and so on, healthy water, clean air, a beautiful shelter, a space to gather as a community, right? These things, if we look back throughout history for thousands of years, those things have always been with us, right? When we were tribes and communities and so on and on. These are very basic and fundamental. And that is what I truly appreciate actually about you and about Yoko, is that you actually choose to touch and facilitate the most fundamental core things for humans. And obviously from these we can grow to many other tools and technology, and these are great. But I truly believe that this has a lot to do with real value. And I really wish for more of those to be present, and so more humans can live that way and flourish.
Thank you.
Yeah. And to answer your question about attracting those people, yesterday at my where I live in Yoko here, I forgot to close the windows, and there was light inside, and so many insects got in the room. And then when I turned the light off, and many of them went out. And I believe that we humans are not so different. At the end, just like insects that are attracted to light, to water, we also are attracted to life, to where there is energy. And I believe that the way to attract is by starting to play together, just like a group of people. You know, they can a group of kids in their kindergarten. You know, there is a game that they don't like very much, so they can yell and say, "Hey guys, stop playing," or "Come play something else," or they could just say, "Hey, let's just start playing. Maybe just the two of us, the three of us," and create energy, create value. And then somebody else would say, "Hey, can I join? Can I join?" And then creates momentum, kind of a snowball effect. So I truly believe that the best way to attract with integrity, you know, without needing to put $1,000 on Facebook marketing. Not that it's a bad thing. Obviously, it's also a way to sound a note and see whoever hears that note and resonates and come. So that's also could be a great way. But I guess the most fundamental way would be to be together and just create and move and facilitate those pillars, those ways, and then more people will come.
Yeah, I guess when you mentioned how people were just astounded from when the Zoe event ended, and they were just like, wow, we want to experience more of this in our lives. It's I also feel the same in some of the festivals that we did here in Yoko. That is definitely a common thing. And then seeing them interacting and wanting to invite more of their friends into what we do. And then there's always this thing, as a gatekeeper, you want to make sure that the people who are already in this like more of advanced game, not just about survival or from win-lose, but from kind of like a win-win. And then people see, I guess, a lot of fast things to everything's like fast new things. It's even hard to keep this conversation that long because you think, oh, people are already like losing their interest because the attention span is so short nowadays. And so when you bring in these topics of appreciation, of life, of connection, um, what exactly do you what happens? Like, what do you do there? I guess there is a certain strategy around how you do this, and people get this wow effect. Maybe you want to share a little bit
Sure.
about how you do that. Yes.
Sure, yeah. I usually start with the pillar of connection and presence, realizing that if we're not in our presence, we can't really listen to each other, truly engage, truly feel. So starting with that, sometimes we can come with many thoughts, and we are either thinking about the past, about the future, about things that bother us. So actually coming back into the present, into our bodies, and then building a field of trust and safety, especially when new people didn't know each other before come into a new space. Yeah, sometimes we are not fully feeling full trust and safety to be ourselves and be authentic. So through different ways and types of workshops, we encourage that field to be built. And then usually what I do is where we start to really deepen. So it could be either in smaller groups or larger groups, but it's basically through those principles of presence, listening, and authentic expression, we kind of deepen to ourselves and each other. You know, Plato has a saying, he says like, know thyself. That I really believe that this is maybe the foundation of almost everything. It's about honesty, personal honesty, to know ourselves. So it's how we know ourselves better and know each other better. And as we do that, we deepen our connection and more trust is created between us. So that is usually a significant part of those journeys. Another one about the appreciation. So we have a thing called the Elysium. It's also from ancient Greek.
What does Elysium mean?
Elysium. Elysium means it's a specific space in like the Greeks' afterlife paradise that is designated to the heroes and saints. And so Elysium in our context, it's basically a space that's focused and based on our senses. We kind of diluted them to 7. So the 5 of the body and the thinking and the feeling. And there are different ways we facilitate Elysiums, but in general, it's a way to each time experience a specific sense in its fullness. So, for example, we had one time a thing where we brought about 150 bags, small linen bags. In each, we put a different scent: vanilla, cinnamon, cloves, lemon, and people would, being with their eyes closed, just smell all of them and be like, wow. Like, we usually take those scents for granted. Just cinnamon, it sits somewhere in our kitchen, but wow, what an experience. So this is the Elysium. We have that in some of the experiences we create. We could continue.
It's everybody now wants to come to a Zoe event, and I hope that you have it here at Yoko very soon. It's definitely something that it could be fun to explore. Daniel, how do you how would you connect what you do and to what is now called, is became very popular, called the network state, and how do you combine maybe between you know, the current state of affairs in the world? And I can tell you that, you know, I'm dreaming about um, building a community here and building another community, so there might be a sense of freedom where we could enjoy a global community and also swap homes, live more grounded, help our friends, love our neighbors, and live in more peace, have more peace and freedom, and be prosperous as a part of that. Then we talked about the network state, and I'm curious, what do you think about, you know, the sense of, you know, just countries in general, and how do you connect all that with the participants, the people who participate in Zoe events?
So I guess what I was contemplating for some years was about universal basic values. What are the basic values that we share as human beings? And usually when I would ask people, is family, is it important? I'd say, yeah. Deep connections with close friends, yes. Health, love. And obviously there are many ways to express love. There are different ways to be healthy. Some eat coconuts and others potatoes. Cheers. And I think that what's nice for me to see is that we humans, on the one hand, can share some universal values, and yet some of us would love to live in Costa Rica, while others may prefer Spain. Some of us may love to live by the beach, and others in the forest, and so on. There are different ways we express those values. And I think what bringing it to the ideas of countries, I may feel more close to somebody living thousands of miles away from me than my neighbor, because we share similar values. We share similar stories of how we want to live our lives. And I think that whether we call it a community, an ecosystem, a network state, at the end it comes down to creating an ecosystem of people who share values, can experience things together, can create things together. And then there are different structures that can be put in place that will support it. So, for example, if we take this idea of the network state, then it has to do with the tokens, blockchain-based cryptocurrencies that basically are in alignment with the value, the financial value also that's created amongst the community, and brings it together around this token. The other idea is about land. So there are many digital communities, especially when it comes to tokens, crypto, those sorts of things. So this idea is maybe those ecosystems can even purchase land. It could be in different countries, but then actually have a significant amount of land. And then if they have an economy, they have physical land, then it can actually be close to be a country. So I think this is maybe a bit about how I see the state, but just to say again that at the end, I think that the main idea is not about the specific structures, but it's about the creating systems and culture that support people with similar values to share their lives together.
You mentioned trust is being part of like such an important factor. Like so much resources are going on the fact that people don't trust each other. And let's envision for a moment YokoVillage here in Costa Rica. We have first, some people need to trust me to make sure that they will be nice people that also feel aligned with their values and they would actually love their neighbors, which is kind of like the first thing, we aspire. And then that the mountain will keep green and beautiful and abundant, right? That there would still be wildlife. But when I go to, if I want to go and knock on somebody's door, they would be like, "Hey, welcome," right? If it's the right timing. And most of the time, there's so many lawyers, there's so much security because there's so much lack of trust. And I think that's maybe one of the main things that are detaining people to come together and co-create things, because there is no trust. How do we overcome that? Like, in, I guess, meeting people at a Zoe event or at a Yoko community event is something that where we get people to understand that we're sharing an impactful like experience together. We're coming in and trying to see ourselves from a place of full integrity and trust. We are here because we are thinking towards positivity and doing good, and not harming other people that are around us, or not wanting to take more so that you can have less, so that I can survive, right? And um, what do you see? How do you see the Zoe gatherings? Um, what's a potential outcome from increasing the trust, and how do we deal with it? How do we deal with it after the event also, as to integrate and come together and continue this trust that is being created? What do you think?
So just a few words maybe about what is trust for me, because you mentioned it a few times. And now I think trust is supporting to facilitate the movement of an expression of potential energy within systems and between people. So what it actually means is that there is potentiality between an entrepreneur and an investor, between a man and a woman, between a flower and a bee. And sometimes this potentiality, which can definitely result in a win-win, with whether it's in the investor that invests in the entrepreneur and they both create value together, or others, other examples. And the thing is that when they lack trust, the energy doesn't move. You may have unique gifts that I don't have, and I have some that you don't. And if we will be able to bring those together, we could create something that's greater than the sum of our parts. If I don't trust you, I won't feel comfortable to offer those. And same with you. So we will actually be in a lose-lose situation. So trust is what can actually shift in many occasions from lose-lose or win-lose to win-win. And I think one of the very significant things that cultivate trust is really transparency. And the thing with transparency is that it doesn't always mean that I choose in a conscious way not to be transparent with you. But sometimes we just don't have the space or the intentionality to create it. If you look at yesterday when we were at the beach together, and we spent a few hours, the two of us, to talk about quite deep things that normally maybe people don't just talk about. And when we created a space that supported it to happen. So I think that's one thing, that's actually creating this language, those formats that we both know, and then we can either say, hey, let's sit for 3 hours of deep connection and ask those deep questions to bring more transparency and authenticity between us. It could be, hey, there is something that's sitting within me, and I want to clear it with you. Maybe something that you said and that hurt me. Maybe something that I'm not sure about with your intentions or anything. If we have those tools to be like, hey, yeah, sure, let's have a clearing, and in 3 minutes we're done.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yes.
It would be great. And these are instruments that when we co-create things, if we have those, we're becoming really powerful, because we are just deepening our trust, and we can exchange even more energy together, and we can create more. And one other thing that I believe is very practical, that supports this exchange of energy, is realizing that whatever I offer, you will keep your boundaries, and you will share any judgments that come for you about me. So let's take an example. Let's say, hey, Liran, would you, I don't know, spend the whole day tomorrow with me on the beach? Now, I may not ask you for that, because I would say, yeah, but maybe you won't feel so good about it, but and he wouldn't want me to be hurt, so he would still do it, but maybe you want to spend the time with his partner. So I might not even ask. I don't want to put you in an uncomfortable position. And the other reason is that I would be like, yeah, maybe Liran will judge me for wanting to spend so much time with him. What will he think about me? I better not ask this. If I know that you will keep your boundaries, and if any judgment comes up, you would say, hey, actually, when you offered this, I was seeing this judgment coming for me, and just want to clear it. Then I can basically ask anything. I can ask you for money. I can ask you for to do boxing with me. I can ask you to anything, and you can say yes or no, and I can say yes or no, and we can basically do everything we wanted together. So I think those tools, just knowing that we have those, are tools that can consistently cultivate more trust between us.
Trust is a direct expression of what happens in communication between people, and we live in a world that's full of judgments, especially like we see it all the time in the news and social media. I, by the way, try not to watch the news at all for the last few years. But I do get people judging me all the time based on something they've seen. Maybe it's not even true, but yet the judgment comes so often, and everybody has an opinion, and they what's sometimes awkward for me when I go to an event, and there would be somebody who would just express some sort of direct opinion and would be judging me in front of others, and that's how I feel like less comfortable versus coming to an event where people are really afraid to say what they think. And so the balance of between people coming together and saying what they feel with boundaries, like you say, but at the same time expressing it in a light way that could develop a conversation about it, because every coin has two sides, and right.
Actually, want to offer a practical tool to work with those moments when things like you mentioned happen, that different people can have judgments about you and these kinds of things. Let's say that you have a neighbor that you feel like is judging you, and they don't like you very much. And then there is this kind of distance. You go past each other and say, hey, hello, and they say hello, but you feel the distance. And a year can pass, and this distance will continue. And then you realize that there is a story that's unspoken. The story is saying that they have a judgment about you, maybe about a specific thing, that you are, I don't know, making noises, or that you are not whatever.
And I'm not even aware of it.
And you're not aware of it. And they may not be aware of it. But you may have a story of what you think about the relationship, which may be true and also may not be true. And something that can be very powerful and supportive is to invite them to a conversation and actually bring the unspoken and say, hey, so I want to share that I have this story that you are angry about me because this and this and that. And this story keeps me far from you. It makes me feeling some distance. And I do feel that I have an intention for us to actually be close and maybe create things together and maybe have dinner together. So that's
just like each other,
or just like each other's neighbors. So that's why I'm sharing this story, which may be true and not be true, and how what impact it has on me. And I wonder how that is for you, and how can we, and what's your intention for our relationship. And this is actually, it's when you can create a field where the unspoken is being spoken, then what happens is that separation, which is they have their story and you have your story, actually becoming one story that you share. And I say, okay, this is what's actually happening. And now you can talk and clear things and apologize and do many things. But you first need to have this shared ground.
Yeah, this reminds me of a few stories in life where, because I'm an entrepreneur. I've started a few companies, and I get into conflicts, right? And we get into conflicts as humans, and that's why you always want to talk to people who are patient, that are not just going to start yell at you or accuse you in things without really having a conversation. Yet people do that all the time. And when I was a kid, I in like, this was like fourth grade, so I had a fight with this other kid, right? He was bigger and stronger than me, and so the situation wasn't that nice. My mom took me to talk to uh, that kid and his mom, and we suddenly were in their house, and um, we came to have this conversation. Now we were like so upset with each other. By the end of the day, our moms made us talk nice to each other, and we winded up being best friends. And we were best friends for years after that. And it happened to me a few times in my life that actually, out of a situation of having a conflict with somebody, I wound up being their friend. I wound up doing business with them. And it's because there is openness to when there is openness to connect. And a lot of times we fight or get into conflicts with people that are actually our mirror, right? We're kind of like um, and people like to complain, and like our mutual friend always say, behind every complaint there is some sort of a commitment, right? And I really love and appreciate what you do in these events, that is bringing people together to have some sort of alleviation, so they alleviate from one place into wanting to be in a little bit of a better place, and at the end of the day just have a good time, right? Because that's what we all want to do. We just want to have a good time. So what do you think, what do people seek when they come to your events?
Um, I think there are different things that they seek. One is they seek to have a unique experience. Another is they seek to be part of something that's purposeful and meaningful to them. Another is that they wanna make new friends, new people that they can create things with.
What's the usual age group?
Mm, yeah, I think the average would probably be about the 40s.
40s, yes.
There are some their 60s and some their 20s. I guess average date would be about their 40s.
You know, at the end of the day, you're going to look back and you're going to see you made a lot of people happy, uh, and I hope that takes you into having a beautiful journey, and just have a fulfilled life, because we're all here looking for have a fulfilled life, and I think that these types of events that are not related to just plain spiritualism, yoga, the genre of just like, let's just meditate and do yoga and take care of our bodies, like one thing, and it's nice that it's there, versus the other side of let's party and drink or take drugs and all these things that are people do when they're younger, into like some sort of a mid space where there's value and there's depth. And I guess if I would be single, I would maybe want to meet somebody who's also looking for the same thing, right? And if I'm an entrepreneur who want to create collaborations, I would also go there. Maybe that's something that's attracting me particularly, because I know I can collaborate with these types of people. And what I feel that could happen there is that I could meet people that have maybe more of a truer sense to their word, and that's something that I'm kind of like seeking. Um, People who would really walk the talk, and not just come up with slogans, and having an environment that opens people like that. Um, is helpful for every human to walk the talk and come from a place of integrity and it's a very unique experience to be engaged with more and more people like that are next to you for a group for a few days and have this group of people that you can take with you at the end. I hope this becomes international. You did start this in Israel, and now you're kind of moving the center to California. Is that right, or is that something that's part of maybe your plan?
Yeah, so we do start also to create in California. We have an experience just in a few days. The both of us will be there.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, me too, actually, very much. So yeah, there is in Israel where we've already been doing a few significant experiences, and we have an amazing community.
Why California?
What I see as a potential is that energy, whether it's financial energy or other kinds of energies,
Innovation. There's a lot of that over there.
yeah, it's very centralized in our world, which is in many times it's referred to as a problem, which it's also true that it has problems with it. And yet I also see an opportunity, because focusing on people, with people that already hold significant impact, capacity to make an impact, this can really accelerate shifts and transformations. And I can see it in Israel, and I can also see it in California. And I guess one more thing relating to it is that I do believe that, especially now, in these times that we are at, in our current state of our society, civilization, things can move really fast to challenging and not very good directions, but also to amazing places. We have amazing technologies, and there are so many amazing people who really want to do so much good, that I have the pleasure to meet more and more of them, like you and many others, and there are some that you know and I don't know yet, and others that I do and you don't know yet. There is kind of a web that's already there. And I truly believe that at the end, for me, Zoe, it's way more than my thing. At the end, it's something that I would love it to see it becoming more and more as ours. At the end, it is ours. I don't feel that I've invented so much. I mostly revealed, if I did something with it. So it's mostly revealing what I believe is significant or can be impactful. But I really believe that the more that we together, just coming together, and just starting to engage and play by those rules, we will see more and more amazing things happening in so many different ways and directions.
There is in California a lot of power. There's a lot of financial power over there, and it's also, at least in my eyes, a place where a lot of people. There's so much innovation, and a lot of people like creating things that change the world. And so, if we could get some of those A players to move to the B play. I guess your some of your events, your gatherings can facilitate a shift in moving those A gamers to the B game, and that's something I hope to see more, and also bring them to Costa Rica.
Definitely.
Daniel, thank you for this conversation.
Thank you, Liran, very much.
It's a deep one.
Yeah, totally. I truly appreciate it. In this conversation, and in general, our conversations, the things that we are already doing together and the things that we will do, which I'm curious about. I wanna thank you for what you already do in your world and the gifts that you bring to many people.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Cheers.